All right, welcome back to Gage Your Health, episode 5.
Welcome.
Oh, jeez.
Not going to introduce your guest.
No, I was getting there. I didn't really
down his
have a fucking
throat.
chance, in all honesty.
something.
Nelso to my right and Slip to my left. How you guys doing today?
Wonderful. As
Fantastic.
That's awesome to hear, as always.
How about yourself?
Same old, same old. Only day off this week, but it's
That's
what
a
it
good
is.
day.
Yeah, I just slept all day.
It's not bad.
No, not bad. Not a bad day at all. But I was watching some stand-up last night, and I figured good time to talk about it because a lot of stand-up comedians have these issues. And as I watched this one stand-up special, Neal Brennan's 3 Mics.
I've seen it.
Yeah, great special.
I have not seen it.
It's highly recommended. It's different. It's very different, but it's still very, very good. I realized I started thinking about all the mental health issues in comedy and in, with all the comedians and, how they cope with it all and why most of them turn to comedy. And it seems to be a lot of them turn to comedy because of their mental illnesses and because of like their struggles and whatnot. And you can go all the way back from everyone.
So there's something in comedy called the third eye, where you have your 2 eyes, regular ones, obviously, and then the third one where you see the comedy and things, and that's usually because of something not wrong with your head,
Traumatic.
but something different, something different.
Even traumatic happening to you that leads you to see the world in a different way and might develop into a PTSD or some sort of mental illness and some sort of even drug abuse to that point, and then leads on to that.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things you look at with comedy is it's not every comic. There are fantastic comics that aren't big into mental health. I think it is something everyone struggles with to some degree.
Yeah.
But when you look at the comics that seem to cover that topic and the most noticeable comics, your Jim Nortons, your Robin Williams, Sam Kinnison's, go down the list. There's some top tier comics that have struggled mightily with mental health issues, rough like beginnings to their lives and their childhoods, and a lot of these things that shape them into comics. Where I think there's something to the fact a lot of them struggle with drugs as well, where there's kind of something inherently wrong with you if you're looking to just please everyone.
Yeah.
And it's about finding the funny side in that. Yeah. And, that's a pretty blanket statement I'm making. And it's, tongue in cheek in some regards, but
it's finding the funny side and the dark side of life is like bringing light to the dark side.
Right.
Almost.
And that's not every
comics point of view. I see what you're saying 110%, but at the same time, it is a driving force of a lot of the top comedians today. A lot of the SNL is littered with those types of people. Like a lot of that cast focuses on that kind of stuff on their own solo adventures, and even in SNL skits and whatnot, which I find amazing that they cover that and everything. But still, I found this Weekend Update clip not that long ago about Pete Davidson talking on his depression, and it was actually about him talking on the Kevin Love article that we covered a few 2 weeks ago, I believe it was.
Yep.
So I'm going to play that clip right now, and so you guys can hear it for yourself and see how he, describes it.
Hear it from him,
because exactly. I think from the horse's mouth.
When and it's a weird thing with comedy. When you read it, it's a lot different than when you hear it.
Because exactly.
It's taking something. It's something taking out of like the art form where it's when you look at something written down that's meant to be spoken to or seen visually,
it might not look.
It doesn't
good.
translate it.
Yeah,
as well
even like tell me a funny Pete Davidson joke. Like it's not going to be as funny if you tell me the joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like got to be there.
All right, I'm going to play it.
An article about being unstable. Leave it to the big boys. All right. I'm sorry you missed your 3-pointer, Kev, but I've been in therapy since I was 6 years old, and I wanted to kill myself when I was 8. Tough news about your rebounds, though.
I'm sorry. Are you like bragging?
So what if I am? So what? I love being mentally ill. I'm so relieved, that everybody knows that. Now I don't have to hide anything. It's amazing. If I'm out, I'm like out somewhere and I'm like acting like a dick, everyone's like, oh no, he's like mentally ill. And if I'm happy, they're like, oh, good for him. But now, Kevin Love just waltzes in with his little panic attack and he just waters the whole thing down.
I gotta say, Pete, it sounds like you're jealous.
I am jealous. Like Kevin Love is a handsome, rich basketball player. Okay, his uncle's a beach boy. All right, the worst one, but it's still sick. You know?
All right. So even though that was obviously a very comedic setting, and he does go on in that skit to say that, you know, it isn't a joke and it is something to, you know, look at seriously. And if you do have any sort of mental health issues, such as panic attacks, even in the slightest way, to go see and seek help, which is true, very true. But it does bring up really good points on, you know, he says it right there that it kind of shaped him. Like his entire, most of his routines kind of involve in the fact that his father did pass away in 9/11, and he makes a lot of those 9/11 jokes, and he kind of says it like, that's fine, like I can do that because, you know, I'm A, mentally ill, and B, I was a part of it, you know, like it happened to me.
Yeah, I think there's almost a certain event in we covered it on the Weekly Inconvenience, me and Nelso's podcast, with Shaq and bullying and how he ran into an incident. I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but he ran into an incident and it was kind of like a moment for him where he was like, it's either, you know, I learned to be funny because like I can't keep like getting in fights with kids. So I'm going to make everyone laugh. And I think you look at comics and a lot of them have a similar, maybe not like a defined moment in time, but kind of like a shaping.
And it's a way to deal with that type of trauma, or the way to deal with, in Pete Davidson's case specifically, like, oh, my dad passed away, and, you know, one of the most horrific things to happen to America in a very, very, very long time. And, you know, that was his way to deal with it, was to be funny and to make jokes about it and to kind of live through it like that. And as much as that might, you know, come off to some people as, you know, wrong or insensitive, it is a coping mechanism, 110%. And it's an okay coping mechanism. You know, he's one of the most successful comedians out there right now.
Right. So that's one of the interesting things with entertainers in general is kind of they're all looking for something. For some people, it's an escape. For some people, it's you want to like be in front of, be the life of the party. And when you look at especially the type of comics that struggle with mental health, like Pete Davidson, it is, like you said, that escape for them. It's a way to cope. And I think some people a lot of times confuse in comedy when you have like a missed joke, because some of that Kevin Love clip out of context
sounds
horrible.
It really does sound horrible.
And you know,
I'm not going to lie about that.
Not every joke lands. But for some people, it is that escape, and it is a way to cope with mental health, and whether you're the audience or the person doing it, which I think some people confuse when they're critiquing some of these comics for some of their jokes.
And another big thing is comedy's so subjective at the same time. It's not even like a joke sometimes. Like it's a story. It's a funny story that is supposed to relate with people. It's not, you know, really, you know, always supposed to land as a joke. It's kind of more, some comics go out there and try to make it relate more and kind of talk more than crack jokes after joke after joke.
And I think that's why podcasts became so popular, is because even these same comedians are going and doing their podcasts, or it's long form. They're telling stories. I mean, we do it ourselves. Yeah. And I mean, loving comedy is something we all do here. Right. But not everybody likes it. I think it takes a special kind of person, you know, to enjoy the type of edgy and different comedy that we
and
like.
And kind of see through the harshness of it, and to see through the bad part of the comedy and see it's just a joke, but it does bring up a good point of, you know, something we need to look at in society or whatever.
My question for you is, so you look up to Pete Davidson in one way or another. You enjoy his art.
Yeah,
form.
I do enjoy his art a lot.
So do you is there a specific reason why you kind of identify with him specifically?
Not even really. It just the fact of how open he was. You know, that was weird, because he seemed to be the first, especially young comedian. You know, Robin Williams opened up about it
towards the end of his life.
Yeah, but he never did it in stand-up. You know, he never really touched on it too much in stand-up. He might have like made a joke about it.
I think that's a perfect example of someone that you look at, and as people that do a podcast, I mean, and me and Nelso do a more like comedy show. I mean, that is something we enjoy, and we're 4 people in a room that also all struggle with mental health. And for me, you know, I enjoy joking about my mental health.
Oh yeah,
it's, that's something that,
It
takes
helps.
the light out of it, where it's like, there's times where I'll make fun of, my own depression or my own social anxiety because it's a way for me to normalize it in some ways, whether that's healthy
And if
or
you get a
good
joke from
for
somebody
myself.
else-
Like,
I called one of our friends from college literally like 3 a.m. because I thought I was having a heart attack, and he like came and picked me up, and I went to the hospital. Like, we joke around about it, it's something ridiculous, but I think that's something that like a lot of people really go through.
You were having an anxiety attack. It's like that's a serious like mental health like problem, but it's like about being able to joke about some of the stuff and
Exactly.
knowing that everyone else is going through it. Like that for me is where comedy really helps because it is an escape. It's the ridiculous like nature and everything that I love in the art form. And I do get upset sometimes when people attack the sphere of comedy. I'm not a stand-up comic. I just really enjoy the art form of it. But you're even seeing people attacking radios and podcasts that are about jokes and stuff like that.
Radio personalities, not the radios themselves.
Right. I mean, if you look at someone
People are
like
beating up their
like
radios.
Kirk Menahan, I mean, someone that
Right.
is a huge
Large topic.
influence to me as far as someone that I listen to regularly, struggles mightily with mental health. And you look at some of the stuff that he's been able to do and put out for people, yet do it in the form of comedy, where it
And
to
he'll
some-
the person he's talking about, Kirk Menahan, would specifically do a show for consistently day after day, 5 days a week, and then he just stops. He's like, "Yeah, I wanted to kill myself." He's like, "I had to submit like myself into an institution, and I just wasn't able to continue doing it." And you would never be able to guess listening to
Yeah.
it, except for occasionally he'd just be like, "Yeah, you might not see me ever again."
Yeah,
occasionally,
and
No, no.
that's
I've actually never listened.
yeah, I mean, go listen at the Kirk Menahan show. I
Yeah,
mean, he
I've
doesn't
never
need us
actually
promoting his.
That's
He's much
true.
larger
I
than
did not
us.
think so.
But
Kirk Menahan, please promote us though.
yeah, so I think that's something you see, and the reason I bring him up is because you look at someone like Robin Williams that was going out there, performing for people and wanted to make people laugh and was wildly successful, yet struggled with these demons and end up faithfully, killing himself. And that's very sad because that's someone that I really enjoyed in Robin
One of
Williams.
the best actors ever.
But when you look
In
at
all
him,
honesty.
he was always the happy-go-lucky guy. He obviously had his battles with drug addiction, and he had some,
He was an
pretty
alcoholic,
profound
I
comment.
believe, and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
alcoholic, cocaine addict.
Yeah.
And that's something that he was doing to cover up with his
To
mental.
cope on
yeah,
top
to
of
cope.
it, like,
exact-
when people would go up, when people would laugh at him on stage, it would fill a hole with him. I've read this in interviews before. He is an idol of mine, so I have looked into it. But he said, like, from a young age, that's always how he was. He was always a class clown. He always tried to make people laugh. That was what he liked to do because of this. And then when he would get up on stage and perform, he would get this laugh, but it would still kind of leave a hole. It would kind of leave this hole that he said that would only, like, they only liked him because he was funny. So then he would do the drugs and drink to fill that other hole, or at least bandage it up for the time being when he was, under the influence and whatnot. Which,
and that's something you've seen comics
that's
throughout history, dude.
Yeah.
For entertainers in general.
It killed some of the greatest. You go back and look
Absolutely.
at Chris Farley. You go back and look at John Belushi. Imagine if those guys lived to be Robin Williams' age.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the people. It's the nature versus nurture argument, and I think it's a testament to that. It really is nature, not nurture. Like a lot of the stuff is just born into, ingrained.
Yeah.
Even you can go back to third grade, like all elementary school, even to like people sending letters to my parents saying, he just needs to be the center of attention in class.
And that's just how you were.
That's just how I always was.
Yeah,
I didn't
that's
learn
how
it from
you've always
anywhere.
been. That's
yeah, it's
you've
just
never
wired.
changed.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think an interesting point that so, like you were someone that was kind of always wanted to be the center of attention. I remember at a very young age, marching my family around the house, like being told like singing to Jungle Book. I would make everyone get up and march around the house. Like I'm the oldest of three. Like so there was definitely a part of being the center of attention that I was
led
always
the pack.
yeah, I'm getting grandparents up moving. They're working for
Jesus.
me. So that's
They're
an interesting
working for
thing
you.
because then as I got older, I definitely, and still to this day, struggle with a lot of social anxiety and stuff of that nature, where it's almost very contradictory to what I struggle with. And you hear comics commonly refer to similar things where it's like they want to be the center of attention. They enjoy that, but they also have that loner mentality
that's
as well.
what I've heard
where
about a lot of them,
right.
Since I'm just like a stand-up fan, like I can't really
absolutely. And this is from a fan's perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Like
and
this is
from
just
what
for
I've
me,
heard.
honestly, watching probably every stand-up special you could on Netflix that was recommended. To
I've
me.
done about 16
Quarantine's
minutes
been
of
long.
stand-up. I've done about 16 minutes of stand-up in my life.
Congratulations.
Not by choice.
Don't lose fantasy football.
Or sign up for a class that you don't know makes you do stand-up.
Is that really what happened?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
The 2 ways you've made it to stage.
Yeah, my routine was not good. Either time.
I didn't believe it. Let's do this.
Anyway, yeah, I can go get some cold beers if you want.
Can you grab me one?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Oh, cool.
Take notes for me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, we'll fill you in when you get back.
But I wanted to go back and talk about that Neal Brennan special since you did see it.
Right, yeah.
Because it was really, really funny, and
He
if
did
you
it in a
don't
very
know-
interesting way.
A lot of people don't know him, so if you don't know who Neal Brennan is, he wrote for the Chappelle Show. He wrote with Dave Chappelle, and he also wrote for. It was a lot of goofy MTV 2000 singled out. I think was one.
Yeah,
of them.
me.
Something
I'm not sure.
Stupid like
I'm
that.
sure we could look up his IMDb.
He did
But-
a lot of little stupid things, but he was always one of the most creative forces behind it.
Right. I mean, he's a very talented writer. He's very.
Oh yeah,
I would consider fairly successful in Hollywood.
to write on the Chappelle Show, even though it went down the way it did, and
I mean, that's a whole other.
Have you been
argument.
reading about like what he's been saying? Since he started his Netflix, contract,
yeah, I mean,
he's said
so,
a lot about.
like-
He's come out a lot about more about the Chappelle Show.
All right, so before Shark's phone cut us off, I don't exactly remember where we left off, but we were talking about Neal Brennan, and he has plenty of accomplishments in Hollywood. I'm not going to run through his IMDb.
Yeah.
But the one clip in his stand-up that you had actually sent us was very interesting. I know you haven't heard any of his stand-up.
I like to go in fresh.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Here's just one of his jokes, and I think
I'm going to explain this special first before I go into it because it is a stand-up special.
It's your show.
It's
Go ahead.
it's called Three Mics because he literally has 3 microphones on stage. One mic he does one-liners, little quips. Another one he does stand-up stuff on, and then another one he does real talk on. And then this clip is on one of the real talk segments of that.
That's
one.
a really good setup. For
It was a really cool setup,
very
and I
interesting
really
premise,
wanted
for
to see like it. I've watched it over and over and over again, not because the content's really good in it, but just because the setup itself was amazing itself.
I mean, that's kind of a testament to his genius, I'll call it in some ways. His ability to, I mean,
his
more of him as a
creative.
writer, because the ability to write something that blends together, that's so, like, you're distinctly saying, I'm breaking this up into 3 different
Yeah, into 3 different
spheres.
worlds. Like it's very crazy, and definitely
ambitious for sure.
if you
I mean,
enjoy
credit to
comedy,
him. Yeah.
definitely look that up on Netflix. It's been on there for a very long time. It's hidden behind some like paywalls.
I mean, I'm sure you can just type it in.
You can type it in, yeah, but it's never. It'll never come up on like stand up recommended or anything like that. But anyway, yeah, I'm about to start it here.
Always felt like a virus that attacks your brain with negative thoughts. And the medication staved off some of the thoughts, but a lot of them would still break through and would leave a void in their wake. Like, to say I have low self-esteem is not true. I have no self-esteem. Like, I don't have the architecture for good feelings. You give me a trophy, it'll just slide right down. Like, I just don't have the shelving. In fact, I used to have to carry around an index card of funny things I'd written or said or directed just to try to remind myself that I was okay. Depression feels like you're wearing a weighted vest. I always felt like I was at a disadvantaged mood or energy-wise to my peers. It was never life-threatening. It was just life-dampening. And the medication could take some of the weights out of the vest, but I still came across people as either bored or cold or superior, none of which I wanted to come across as. Although I'll tell you, who always loved my attitude? Black dudes. Always. Yeah. They'd be like, Neal, man, you don't give a fuck. And I always want to say, well, that's because I'm sad.
I mean, that's a good
place to
joke.
stop off at. Anyway, it just goes on about that little quip right there, but that doesn't need to be played on. But I find it really interesting because just the fact that he describes it like that's a very hard thing for people with these types of illnesses to go through, with depression and anxiety and stuff like that you kind of see a little bit more common. It's very hard to describe how you're feeling in detail like that. And the way he says, there's no architecture for my good feelings, that's very relatable, because I've had that. I played sports all through high school. I wasn't, great, but I wasn't horrible. I did well, but the accomplishments, exactly.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
But any accomplishment I ever had in there, it didn't really stick with me. I did my best, and I thought that those accomplishments would help me out, but it never really. It slid right down me, as he says. It slid right down my architecture. I was never built for good to have those types of feelings.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you kind of have to get better at, not you specifically, but in general, you really have to give yourself credit for the things you do. And I think that's a tough thing to get used to.
No, it very much is, especially not even in my case. Like, I've been hyped up my entire life. I've been told, I can do whatever I want to do my entire life. I've never come from a bad family. It's just the way I've never been come from a bad, social structure. It's just the way my brain puts it is, you're not going to do well.
Right. And so for me, especially when he talks about, self-esteem, like, I have no self-esteem.
Yeah, neither do I.
Like, that's one thing that, and you kind of brought up about how, like, you came from, like, a good family environment. And, like, that's something, like, me that I've struggled with almost more in the past few years, especially battling, my depression and anxiety, my self-esteem issues, all these things. As I've gotten older, I've really, really taken grasp of them a little bit more to hopefully help combat some of that. And one of the things I've kind of come across in the past few years is almost like I feel bad for my parents that I struggle with some of these things, because I don't want them to feel like they caused any of it.
I've felt that way definitely before. I really have. And then
Dude, you do not look okay over there.
Yeah, what the hell's going on? I lost my train of thought. I don't even know what's happening anymore.
I just look over and
giggling
Mason's got
around
like
and-
tears streaming down his face.
Yeah.
Are you okay, dude?
Not really.
We're in a safe space. What's going on over there?
I'll gauge your health right now.
Please help me.
I'm not a doctor.
Me and Shaq made eye contact, and we couldn't stop laughing. I don't know what to do.
All right.
It was like the staring game.
Yeah, it was similar but different.
You're just waiting for someone to break.
I can't wait to see that in
And
camera.
I used to have the same problem, I swear, in high school. Like, if I would just, if me and someone in my
Like you're
class locked
staring them down constantly.
well, it would be friends.
Terrifying.
It would be friends. It wouldn't be random people in the class. That's crazy. It would be friends.
I'm not sure about that.
I'm positive. I'm telling the story.
I think
I'm
you're doing
positive.
it your way.
All right, I might be smudging a little bit here, but not too much.
A little bit of schmuck there.
No, seriously though, like if a teacher was teaching and I would just look over and make eye contact with someone, and like we would just start laughing. That's it.
That was the end of it. Okay.
Just took the attention. It just didn't know. I literally just did it.
Yeah.
It's the Mason show.
Exactly. I got my attention. I got what I wanted. Thank you.
All right. Well, since you got the attention now, you might as well. I know Nelso wanted to talk about Artie Lange, who's another great comedian. He's still alive, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
So-
Yes, I thought so. I was
Amazingly.
yeah, exactly. That's why I said it kind of questioningly, because I know somewhat about him. I've never really watched too much on him. I've seen him on This Is Not Happening on YouTube, which is another great series if you haven't watched that
Yeah,
yet.
I mean, Artie Lange is a fantastic comic with a terribly sad story
Yeah.
of self-destruction and
You know who's
and
another
drug
like that?
abuse. I mean, and mental health issues. It's really sad. I mean, you look at when he was at his peak, when he was on the Howard Stern show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and he was showing up on so much heroin that he was falling asleep, that it was like playing out
dipping
on
out,
radio.
yeah.
I mean,
And he was on Mad TV too. People forget he was still doing heavy drugs
With Bobby Lee.
absolutely-
Yep.
Him and Bobby Lee.
Yeah, it's. I mean,
But you know-
it's so sad to watch him because he's such a what it comes off to me as is a genuinely good
Almost
guy.
like wasted
just really
kind. Not I don't want to say wasted,
no.
but like
it's
altered
just sad
in a bad
yeah,
way.
It's sad to watch.
His dad fell off of the roof, or fell off of a ladder, and was just never the same after, and that kind of really hit him deep. But his deep, dive of depression and mental health issues led him to stabbing himself 9 times in the abdomen.
Jeez. When was this?
With a 13-inch knife. It was in 2010.
So he's older too. So 2010, he was.
Artie's got to be in his like late 50s.
Yeah.
I thought he was honestly even older than that. I thought he was in his mid 60s.
No,
And it's not his first time trying to
Because
kill himself. either.
he does look. Oh, he's only 53.
53.
Holy shit!
oh yeah, so he's younger. Than
And
me.
he ended up snorting cocaine and had like glass in it. You can see his nose right there.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
It looks like it's a shadow, but it's not. It's just a giant. His nose is smushed.
That's horrible. Hopefully, we can get a picture of that behind us.
Yeah,
I think he
100%.
subsequently got it repaired.
And he
Oh
looks
yeah,
horrible
definitely.
there.
Yeah, no, he's always looked horrible.
But I mean, he's
that's
been
the thing.
in
But I think
mean,
that's
like,
one of the
gambling
draws to
addict,
him.
Drug addict. But he's just such a he's masked all this in comedy and maintained to be such a fantastic comic through all of it.
You know who else
It's
reminds me
crazy.
very much of him is Joey Diaz. Joey Diaz is a
Younger
seems
Joey
very much.
Diaz, yes, when he was still doing cocaine, you could see some of that self-destructive nature in him.
Diaz wasn't
And
a
the thing
heroin
is-
addict though.
Joey Diaz, so was as was Joey Diaz. He was
Oh,
a hardcore heroin addict.
he
as
was
well.
a hardcore heroin
he
addict?
He was an addict to everything. If you watch like a lot of his
Oh,
stand-up,
I know, but Joey Diaz is most known for his
cocaine use, but
addiction.
he was also a
mean-
he trafficked cocaine. That was why that story I believe was told so much, because he had so much stories with trafficking it.
And you know, he's a kind of a comic there. He never addresses mental health issues.
No, he does. He
And
addressed
he might not even
per
realize.
se.
in a weird side way. I
In
would say he addresses
in
mental
more
health
so
issues.
not his stand up, but this is where you see stand ups now being given platforms with podcasts, especially where Joey Diaz has really expanded and talked about some of his mental health in some regards. I mean, Joey Diaz per se isn't like the biggest like mental health.
No,
like,
no,
I
he's
don't
not
want
the biggest mental health advocate at all. He grew up in a very.
advocate's probably not the right word, but it's not something that he
not
covers
outspoken.
regularly. But he's always
you gotta
about
remember how
giving
he
people
grew up,
good
too.
vibes and you know wishing well on
He
people.
grew up in Brooklyn in the 70s. In a lot of his stand-up, he talks about how he literally watched his stepdad beat the shit out of somebody who just did something as little as something as like catcall his mom in New York City, like in somewhere where that's
you know,
gonna happen.
there-
And
And you know, there's really nothing wrong with not being outspoken about it. I don't think.
no,
It's all a
I do
personal
believe it is. It's
preference.
all on a personal level, and just if you don't want to talk about it, that's 100% fine. If you are struggling with it though, you should seek help regardless of if you don't want to talk about it or not. If it is a threatening thing, and if it is dampening your life, as Neal Brennan said, as Neal Brennan said, when depression is more like a weighted vest, and his depression wasn't life dampening, it was life dampening, not life threatening. So that's a very good way to say it. Like, if that is something that's happening, if it's dampening your life or if it's threatening your life, definitely receive help. But some people don't need to talk about it, and some people can get through their lives with it.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things. Like, it's not required by everyone to cover the topic.
No,
You
not at
know
all.
what I mean?
Not at all.
It's like I don't fault anyone that doesn't, isn't wildly outspoken about
No.
mental health.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. When I said that he doesn't speak out about it, that's not a negative thing.
No,
It was
I
just
didn't,
a-
I
just
didn't
a
mean to
fact.
portray it in a negative light
No.
in any way whatsoever. I was just saying, the
Yeah,
down and dirty.
I
It came
think
off
that
pretty negative from my point of view.
I
At least when I
apologize.
said it, I was like, oh, he doesn't even talk about mental health.
No. That's not what I meant at all. That's not what I meant at all.
That's not what I meant either.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things that obviously mental health is a very sensitive subject where for some people it may not, like, they may not be able to joke about their mental health, and that's totally fine. Like,
Yeah.
so it is different for everyone because what one person's coping method is with mental health might be comedy. For me, I enjoy comedy. It is a massive help for me as far as from a coping mechanism, as well as sports is for me. And that's different for everyone. For some people, it's music, whether it's playing music, making music, what have you. Whatever your coping method is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of comedians use comedy as their coping mechanism and as their way out and as their way to kind of describe their feelings and describe in their own terms how they can get through it and, how they get through their everyday struggles and their everyday lives with it. And I think that's a big point in all art forms, whether it be, music or anything like that, like we touched on, any sort of art form, whether that be comedy, movies, music, or podcasts even, it's a way to get out and a way to show and a way to cope and a way to show the world, what you're dealing with in your own personal words, in your own way. And I think that's the big draw about comedy. And personally, to me, that's the big draw to comedy is they can tell it the way they want to tell it, not any other way.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, like I said earlier, coping mechanisms are coping mechanisms. If it's comedy for you, great, same. If it's music for you, if it's rock climbing, if it's fucking skydiving,
Yeah, whatever outlet helps you out.
Sports too, yeah.
Yeah, whatever outlet helps you out.
Right. Exactly. I think that's the big message. We've covered a few topics similar to that where you see these entertainers. I'm sure we'll do actors or something.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do more similar topics on this, just in different details.
It's endless. It really is.
It really is, and that's the thing about mental health. It is endless, and it can constantly be spoken about and, talked about, and everyone can be helped in their own different way. So I think that's a good place to leave it off. So everyone check out Weekly Incon, Drunk Gamblers. It's at Real Drunk Gamblers on Instagram, and then DG Card Room. Everything else I've been plugging this entire time. So
Go
all right,
watch
guys.
the YouTube.
And subscribe to this, yeah.
Yeah, subscribe, leave comments. Tell me what you think.
5-star review.
Yeah, of course.
Boost our ego a little bit.
All right, guys, have a good one.
Have a good one.